Welcome to the Bare Metal CyberSec ISSP Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the ISS Squared CISSP exam with focused explanations in practical context. In this episode, we'll explore federation and single sign-on to related concepts that enable secure, seamless access across systems and platforms. We'll also examine three core protocols that make these technologies possible: Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML, OAuth, and OpenID Connect. These frameworks are essential to modern identity and access management and are widely used in both enterprise and consumer applications. Let's start by understanding the difference between federation and single sign-on and how they work together. Federation is a relationship between two or more separate systems that trust each other to share authentication or authorization information. For example, an organization might trust a third-party identity provider like Google or Microsoft to authenticate its users. That trust relationship means the organization does not need to manage usernames and passwords directly for those users. Single sign-on is a specific application of federation. It allows a user to authenticate once and access multiple connected systems without needing to log in separately to each one. This creates a smooth experience for the user and a more manageable security model for the organization. Federation enables the technical backend, while single sign-on delivers the user-facing benefits. Together, these systems simplify identity management, reduce the risk of password fatigue and reuse, and allow for centralized control over access. At the same time, they help organizations meet compliance goals, reduce administrative overhead, and ensure consistent enforcement of security policies across all connected systems. Now, let's focus on Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML. SAML is an open standard that allows identity providers and service providers to exchange authentication and authorization data securely. It uses extensible markup language to format the messages, making it readable and compatible across platforms. SAML is most commonly used in enterprise single sign-on scenarios. For example, a user logs into a company portal and that login is then trusted by cloud applications like Salesforce, Google Workspace, or Office 365. The identity provider creates a SAML assertion, a signed document that confirms the user's identity and roles, and the service provider accepts that assertion in lieu of a direct login. This model is efficient and secure. It keeps credentials with the identity provider, which reduces the attack surface. It allows centralized identity management and makes it easier to revoke access if someone leaves the organization. However, SAML must be implemented carefully. You must protect the integrity and confidentiality of SAML assertions, validate signatures, and ensure that time windows for token use are strictly enforced. For organizations managing multiple services and providers, SAML provides an essential mechanism for secure, scalable identity federation. Now let's shift to OAuth and how it differs from SAML. OAuth is a protocol that enables authorization, not authentication. That means it allows a user to grant limited access to their resources without sharing their password. You've seen OAuth in action whenever you click log in with Facebook, or authorize this app to access your Google Drive. Auth works by issuing access tokens to third-party applications. These tokens define what the application can do, for how long, and with which data. Importantly, OAuth does not tell the third party who the user is. It only authorizes what the application can access. That's where OpenID Connect comes in. OpenID Connect is a layer built on top of OAuth that adds authentication. It allows the service to verify the user's identity and receive profile information alongside the access token. Together, OAuth and OpenID Connect enable secure login, authorization, and identity transmission. AOHRs and OpenID are powerful because they minimize the exposure of credentials, reduce phishing risk, and support secure delegation of access. However, these protocols must be implemented with strict controls, especially around token lifetimes, scopes, and revocation mechanisms. Otherwise, stolen or misused tokens can lead to unauthorized access. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity, and more at baremetalcyber.com. Let's now discuss how to implement Federation and SSO securely. Begin with clear documentation. Your Federation policies must define the trust relationships between your identity providers and service providers, including who is responsible for what data and how authentication is validated. Use secure protocols for transmitting assertions and tokens. Encrypt all communication using transport layer security, and ensure proper token signing and verification. Monitor Federation traffic carefully. Set up logging and alerting for abnormal activities such as repeated assertion failures, expired tokens, or anomalous login attempts. Review logs from both identity providers and service providers, as each side of the relationship provides visibility into different aspects of the user's activity. Establish contracts or agreements with third-party identity providers. These agreements should clearly spell out responsibilities, obligations around privacy, uptime expectations, and how to respond to incidents involving user data. Federation extends your trust perimeter, so you need strong governance in place. Now let's move on to the security controls that support Federation and SSO. At the authentication layer, always use multi-factor authentication to secure the initial login process. It doesn't matter how good your SAML implementation is, if an attacker compromises a user's account, they can gain SSO access to everything. Protect the tokens and assertions that flow between systems. Tokens should be signed, validated against time windows, and checked for proper scopes. Use secure token stores, secure APIs, and ensure session management is tightly controlled. Revoke access when a user logs out, changes roles, or is terminated. Regularly audit your entire SSO environment, review the identity provider's configurations, analyze token exchange flows, and test for vulnerabilities like replay attacks or token forgery. Ensure that any public keys used for validating tokens are properly rotated and protected. Evaluate the end-user experience to identify usability issues that might lead to workarounds or risky behavior. Monitor your authentication logs carefully. Federation doesn't eliminate the need for traditional controls like log analysis, alerting, and incident response. In fact, the shared nature of Federation means you must be even more vigilant. Log all authentication and authorization events and correlate them across systems. Continuous improvement is vital. As new threats emerge, Federation and SSO protocols must evolve. Regularly assess your implementation against industry best practices and evolving standards. Review audit findings, update training, and ensure that your team is familiar with how tokens, assertions, and identity metadata function. A minor misconfiguration can lead to a major compromise. Collaborate across teams. Identity and access management involves security, legal, compliance, infrastructure, and application development. Everyone needs to be aligned in how trust is managed, how identities are validated, and how tokens are handled. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CISSP Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com